welcome, Mr. Gouldman. It's lovely to see you. And
Thank
thank
you.
you so much for joining us this evening.
My pleasure.
My co-host Graham Chalmers and myself, Charles Hutchinson, we regularly host two big egos in a small car, and we have guests every so often. And Graham and I have interviewed you over the years in our journalistic capacities, in print capacities, Harrogate Advertiser in Graham's case, and in my case, for the York Press and onwards. So
Okay.
we've spoken to you in the past, and it's lovely to do so now for our podcast. Reason for us doing so, Graham, as you know, the Heartful of Songs show, a tour that's coming up this spring, and you're going to be playing as part of that date, part of the tour, Leeds City Varieties on March the 16th. And it's described as, Graham, with a semi-acoustic four-piece lineup, part of a 16-date tour in March 2025, having last toured with this band in 2023. Best known, of course, Graham, sorry, this is a long-winded introduction. I promise we will start talking shortly.
No worries.
Charles. Get
Your
on with
long
it.
involvement with 10CC, but preceded by a remarkable story that started songwriting at, I think, the age of 16, and early songwriting for names as familiar to us as the Yardbirds, the Hollies, Herman's Hermits. Later, of course, working with Andrew Gold in Wax, becoming an inductee in America in I'm going to get the title wrong anyway. In 2014, you were inducted.
Songwriters Hall of Fame.
That is exactly correct. Of course, performed with Ringo Starr's All-Star Band in 2018. And Graham, I think I spotted you on television the other day, possibly reuniting with Kevin Godley to perform "I'm Not in Love."
You certainly did. Yes, we were on the BBC Radio 2's The Piano Room.
How did that come about?
Well, it all came about because it's if you can believe it, the 50th anniversary of the release of "I'm Not in Love."
Dear,
I can
It
believe
seems hard to believe, and it was because of that, really. They asked us, or the two remaining members that were still active,
yes,
and speaking to each other, to actually do the show
yes.
together. So the format of the show is when they do the piano room is because obviously it's something that's been going on for a while. They ask all the artists that they have on to perform a song that they're famous for, to perform a new original song, and to do a cover version. And that's what we did.
What was the cover
great.
version?
Really enjoyed it. And it was lovely working with the BBC Concert Orchestra, and working also with Anne Dudley, who did the arrangements.
Ah, splendid. Graham, over to the other Graham Chalmers. Graham, kick away with your first question, if you would.
Every time I watch Sky Arts and there's a music documentary, Graham Gouldman turns up. It's like, if it's about the Yardbirds, he's there. If it's about the Hollies, he's there. If it's the 60s British invasion America, he's there. And then you chuck in Wax, Andrew Gold in the 80s. And then you chuck in Ringo Starr's All-Star Band. And then you chuck in even like rap, like Jay Dilla in 2006 sampled The Worst Band in the World by 10CC for his Work On It single. And it's like every era of rock and roll history, Graham Gouldman has been brilliant at from start to finish. It's just uncanny.
I suppose with the documentaries, like things like particularly the Yardbirds one, which I think came out late last year. These bands are being sort of remembered again, after not being active for so many decades. But I think people are discovering them. There's they make really interesting documentaries out of them, and the stories are fascinating always. I mean, of every band that has ever made it, there's always an interesting story to tell. No, I'm proud to have been part of it.
I think what comes across most of all is the quality of the songs. Even though at the start it was the Hollies, like Bus Stop, just like a four-piece guitar band. It's almost like when you were young and first writing songs and getting success, people were still thinking about the Great American Songbook and Frank Sinatra and Cole Porter and great songwriting of the 40s and 50s.
Yes.
And it's almost like what you were doing is the new great songbook of now. The quality of the songwriting still stands up well now compared to current songwriting.
Well, that's very nice of you to say so. I mean, like a lot of my contemporaries, I was at the right age at the right time to be listening to things like the Hollies, the Everly Brothers, Little Richard, Chuck Berry, Buddy Holly, Rick Nelson, a lot of great guitarists. Then the skiffle era, Lonnie Donegan, which was really important. Doesn't get talked about enough, I don't think.
No.
And then Cliff and the Shadows, and then the Beatles. So to be a young teenager listening, or even preteens, listening to that stuff, and that going into your, becoming part of your DNA, if you like. And all those things I listen to still influence what I'm doing today. So I think a lot of the songwriters that were came from that era, there'll be a lot of us that will have music and written songs that have stood the test of time.
I suppose you were also against very stern competition. When you were writing songs, you knew that this song wanted to be in the charts against bands like the Beatles. So you couldn't just do something not brilliant. It had to stand up.
Yeah, well, it had to stand up for me. It wasn't anything to do. I wasn't trying to, the Beatles were kind of like the benchmark. This is what you're trying to achieve. So there was that, but I never felt any kind of competitiveness or anything with anybody else, because I was sort of pretty much on my own, Manchester writing songs. So I didn't feel that, because Manchester was a brilliant place to be a musician or a music fan, because we had so many great bands coming through the city. I mean, every week there'd be somebody, like one week it'd be the Beatles, next week it'd be the Stones. It's fantastic.
Manchester hasn't changed. It's still a great place for new bands and for
touring
bands.
It's always produced wonderful artists, whether in all the arts, I think.
What would you put that down to? Because speaking here as a Yorkshireman, and we look maybe the contrast between Leeds and Manchester. I mean, I wouldn't even call it a competition when it comes to it, because yes, Leeds has had some successful bands, but Manchester, I'm not saying it derides Leeds, but by comparison, it's a mighty, and it's been over decades. So is there something about Manchester that does produce this form of bravura songwriting?
Well, I think something is to do with Manchester's always been great for the arts, the theatre, art, the library, and because it's a university town, that it's produced lots of venues.
Yes,
for bands and artists to play in. So I think that has something to do with it. What there is about the Mancunian or the Northern soul that has produced so many great, musicians, particularly in popular music, I don't really know. Besides that there was always venues, so you knew you could get out and play. There's probably some other reason that I can't actually think of, but there's no doubt. I think Manchester definitely sort of punched above its weight in that. I mean, Liverpool didn't do too badly either, let's face it.
I mean, there's probably the more natural competition is Manchester versus Liverpool as to which is the greater swaggering city of rock writing. And that's why I say that Leeds may be sort of seen as second division by comparison. But
I think also there was one other thing that I think that actually 10cc helped with in that, with the fact that we had Strawberry Studios. It was the first really proper studio in let's say our part of the north of England. So that sort of stimulated sort of growth in music, I think, in the North as well.
In the 70s for 10cc, it was, if you like, a competitive era that you came through and formed in 1972. And we look at the great acts of that time that were making pop hits. One thinks of Bowie, one thinks of Mark Bolan, one thinks of Slade, obviously, huge hits as well. Was it more? We say that maybe it wasn't competitive in the 60s, but was it more competitive in the 70s? And there was something that was distinctive about 10cc. You seemed more experimental with how you played with sound than maybe these other bands that I mentioned. I'm not saying they wasn't experimental or innovative and became increasingly so, but that seemed to me to be something that stood out in 10cc, is how you used sound.
Yeah, well, two things. First of all, we weren't competitive. We didn't care about competition. We weren't aware of it, and it wouldn't have influenced us in any way what anybody else was doing.
Okay.
However, all I would say was, as far as what as trying to being original and trying to be innovative, was that our common influence between the four of us, of the four original members, was the Beatles, and so their songwriting and production values were definitely a big part of what 10cc was about. Plus the fact we had our own studio. We were completely self-contained in that Eric Stewart was an engineer. A lot of the time we'd just be in the studio, just the four of us, so no one else at all, no producer, no other engineer. And I think that had something to do with it. And the most important thing was the chemistry of these four different characters who brought four different things to the mix.
Yeah, you listen to 10cc now, and what strikes you is how it still sounds so good, and it still sounds very intelligent. And one of my favorite current bands, a sort of experimental pop act called Field Music, absolutely love 10cc. And some of Field Music songs, you can tell they love 10cc. Other songs you can't tell at all.
What's the band called?
Field Music.
Field
2 words,
music.
Field
Actually,
Music.
I have heard that. Yeah.
And some does sound like you, other tracks don't, but they like the fact you're intelligent and you're willing to like experiment a bit. In all the songs that were hits that you co-wrote, like Amanda Fly Me, Wall Street Shuffle, Rubber Bullets, I'm Not in Love, obviously, they don't sound 50 years old. In fact, especially in terms of the sounds and the lyrics, I could imagine 10cc coming along now as young men and being successful right now.
I wonder if we get a record deal now, because they'd ask us first, how many followers have you got?
Oh, yeah.
Good point.
That's the important thing now. I think that, because we just basically wrote for ourselves. We didn't write for you or either of you. We wrote for ourselves and please ourselves. And by chance, you happen to like what we did. So that's great. I mean, and we never followed any trends or fashion. And as I said before, didn't feel we were in competition with anybody.
Not even in
competition with each other. So the songs, that's why they have a timeless quality. And the 10cc touring band that I'm still tour with can still sell out concerts because people want to hear those songs in the best way possible. And they've really have stood the test of time, because I always say, like, it's really like this, the songs are the sort of stars of the show.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of satire in the lyrics. I mean, the songs about money, politics, society, showbiz. There's even songs taking the mickey out of being in a rock band.
Yes.
And again, that sort of attitude would still work today if you were forming a new band.
I think it would. But, today everything's seen, look, there's a lot of formulaic stuff, but there's also, there's good stuff as well and original stuff. So I'd like to think that the 2025 version of 10cc would still get signed to a major label.
Graham, what about...
you might be in rough trade.
Yeah.
Graham, I was going to ask about when creating the new solo album that came out last year in 2024. I have notes.
Yeah.
How that maybe contrasts with writing for 10cc when it is, what dictates maybe a solo song? Are the parameters different?
The difference is, of course, that all the 10cc hits were various collaborations. So the songs that I write on my own are different now because they're more, as you get older, you get a bit more philosophical. A lot of them are more personal. I still have this thing of when I'm writing or co-writing, we don't care. We're not listening to anything else. We're just writing what we feel in the moment. And that's what it is. It's kind of like you've got a little snapshot of my life in an album that came out in 2024. I can look back on it and go, oh, this is what I was thinking about then, or I wrote this song about this. I chose this subject because for this reason or that reason. So that's really nice to have that. But they're not as kind of. I don't think they are as experimental. There are some things that are experimental, but it's more. I think they're quite diverse, and that's a similarity that they have with the original band, is that there's all different sorts of songs. There's sort of quite serious, almost like I won't say classical music, but serious instrumental stuff, and then there's sort of country stuff, and then there's sort of more bluesy things. So it's all a bit of a mixture. But I've always been influenced by so many different genres of music that it just comes out like that.
What about, in choosing guests on there, Brian May, Ringo Starr, Hayman?
Yeah.
Well,
really
Albert
lucky
Lee, that's one hell of a contacts book you've got there.
yeah, and I'm really grateful that when I did approach all these people to play, I was very careful about it. I thought, it wasn't done on a whim. It was like when we were writing the Couldn't Love You More, and my co-writer Phil, now we're talking about it, who could play on it. I said, this song is so blatantly Beatlesy. There's only one person that I'm going to ask to play drums on this.
Yeah.
And fortunately, Ringo agreed. And the same with Hank Marvin. I just heard when it came to the solo spot in the song "Couldn't Love When You Find Love." I just heard his sound. So I thought, well, I'll ask him. I do know him, so that was a start.
T'other Graham.
Well, yeah. I particularly love "Art for Art's Sake" of 10cC's 1976 album. How Dare You? It's got cynical lyrics, but at the same time, it's not really cynical because you can tell that you actually care. You haven't given up caring. You're just making a point about something. So I love that combination of things. But is it true that the main line from "Art for Art's Sake" was inspired by your dad?
Yes, he used to say that to me, and it's quite a cynical saying, but he wasn't a cynical man. But it was funny, Art for Art's Sake, money for God's sake. So it was great, and so there you go. You have a great title, inspired a quite a big hit record.
Well, yeah, it's amazing that something called "Art for Art's Sake" would be a top 10 smash, but it was. That's how good 10cc were.
Yeah, well, a lot of things to do, a lot of successes has to do with timing as well, and I think we were, in the right place at the right time.
Last thing from me to ask you, because I know time is tight. Heart Full of Songs, semi-acoustic, gives you a chance to look at songs in a different way.
Yes, it does.
Maybe to reveal their, the skeleton, if you like, of the song.
Exactly.
And
yes.
not just 10cc songs, but songs from earlier hits as well, and solo songs. Tell me about that process and how that, what the benefit of doing that is, if you like.
Well, there's a couple of things that I can do with Heart Full of Songs that I can't do or don't choose not to do with 10cc. And one is to give more of an explanation of how the songs came about. People really are very, very interested in how you got that line various other, just what inspired it. So it's a more intimate setting. So I get to talk a bit more. And the songs I chose are ones that suit this sort of acoustic setting. So I wouldn't be able to do Rubber Bullets because it wouldn't sound right. So I'm not going to do it. But a song like I'm Not in Love, which is famous for its big choir and it's a massive production and sound, works really well, even with some acoustics and one piano. In that, it's just a good song. So it works very well in that. I mean, there's one song we do that which is Bridge to Your Heart, which is well, I had wrote with Wax. Andrew Gold when we had Wax, the late great Andrew Gold, and that original version didn't work at all. So I just changed the rhythm of it, and it works really well. So there's a few things like that change, but at the essence of it, it's really about the song. And if you've got a good song, even though you might know the version of it from a big production type record, if the song's good enough, even when it's stripped down to just a few people playing, it should work.
Yeah, I've seen a million bands, I've been to a million gigs, and when you're at a gig, a great pop song always sounds better live. So when I saw the Beach Boys with Brian Wilson about 7 years ago in Liverpool, when they did I Get Around, a song which everybody knows really well, when I heard it live for the first time, my jaw nearly dropped. It sounded so good. It was way better than listening to the record. And your songs are like that. They exist as songs without the band and instrumentation and the production.
Also, when you go and see a band like the Beach Boys, and there are other bands I can think of, if you're not listening to I Get Around, which is a fantastic record and song, but when you hear it again, you're listening with different ears somehow. First of all, of course, you're in the live setting, and the people that actually recorded it or wrote it are actually in front of you. So that makes a big difference. But yeah, you can hear songs in a different way when you hear them live, even though they're pretty much like the record. But of course, there's a whole atmosphere of you being in the same room as the people that recorded it.
That's true.
I mean, that must be part of the pleasure, Graham, for you to continue to perform as profusely and as often as you do. Both 10cc tours regularly, and you toured even to America with 10cc for the first time in more than 3 decades recently.
That's right.
I mean, for you, obviously, there's pleasure in songwriting, and that goes back a long time. But I guess the thing of it's, if you like, contact with audience.
It's really nice. I mean,
justifies a song more, it seems to me, when you see that reaction in person.
What I like about it is that I'm not a showman, right? I'm a singer and a songwriter and a record producer and a few other things. But it's more just what I want to happen is, when I wrote the song, I felt this. I want you to feel it. Even if you feel half of what I felt, I want you to get it, And one of the great pleasures of performing live is the pleasure that you see people are receiving.
Yeah,
it's one of the greatest. It's like a gift. It's a marvelous thing. So I mean, my work life consists of writing songs, making records, and playing live, and whichever one I'm doing, whether it's 10cc or Heart Full of Songs, I'm going, this is just the best thing I can do. It's fantastic. So as long as I continue to enjoy it, I'll continue to do it.
Which I can absolutely understand. It's one of those things. I mean, there are certain things you can understand why people might retire from something. I think playing music is something I can't imagine unless physically someone can't do it anymore.
Yeah. Why would you stop? Why would
one give up doing it? It seems to be too
and also, if you're not enjoying it, don't do it, because I think audiences pick up on when if someone's just going through the motions, they actually pick up on that. And the opposite is true. When you're enjoying it, they kind of get it. You know, kind of that enjoyment that you're having sort of transmits to them.
So the musicians that you work with for Heartful of Songs, 10cc live band members in Hornal and Keith Hayman and Dave Cobby. Tell me how you choose the musicians to do this project with. I mean, I guess there's a kind of shorthand there.
Yeah,
and working with.
Yes, of course. The musicians that I work with, actually, it isn't Iain Hornal on this on this tour. It's Andy Park, who also does Iain Hornal's parts when Iain's not available in 10cc. Right. Yeah. So, all the boys I've worked with, you know, for a long time. Andy, not only for just a few years, but enough. And he's a marvelous singer. He's a guitarist, bass player. He's fantastic. Keith Hayman has been with the band for about, I don't know, I can't remember exactly, but it's over like 18 years.
Yeah.
Myself and Dave Cobby, who's our percussionist, also happens to be 10cc's production manager. But he plays percussion, and he's a fine drummer as well in his own right. So, in other words, I'm with people that are already kind of family. So that's really nice to be with people I love and trust, and as importantly, are wonderful musicians.
A trivial question to ask: have you ever heard a 10cc cover that you've liked?
A 10cc cover version. I've heard one that I didn't like.
I thought you might say that.
Yeah, but I won't mention that.
No.
I thought the Richie Havens version of I'm Not in Love was the most interesting in that it was completely different. So I would say, yes, that one.
Do you think they're quite difficult songs to cover? I mean, and I mean that they're such distinct.
Yeah, I don't think I mean, besides I'm Not in Love, I've had more covers from the songs that I've written either in wax or solo or on my own.
There's not many bands would attempt.
They are hard to cover. I mean, there's not that many 10cc tribute bands, which probably
I was wondering what they would call them, what they would call themselves.
5cc.
Really, yeah, probably. Oh, yeah. I don't know, but you know, it's not like, well, there's a million cover bands that do, you know, great jobs. And actually cover bands have become quite important because for, you know, a lot of people, they won't be able to, either the members of the band are no longer, of the original bands that they loved are no longer with us, or aren't able to tour anymore. Yeah, but I think would be quite a challenge to be a 10cc cover band. Yeah. I know there is one in Birmingham. I can't remember the name.
Oh, I'll have to look.
I think it's something. Is it something like Pretend CC or something like that?
Telegram?
Well, yeah, I didn't really like keep Graham too long. I just wanted to say that, and I've just realised this, that this must say something about how great Graham Gouldman is. That we haven't even thought of asking Graham showbiz questions or ask him to give us any showbiz stories, because you don't do that to a great songwriter. There's no point.
No.
Thank you.
So Graham, we thank you for being with us today. Really, really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Just a reminder to listeners, the Heartful of Songs tour is coming to Leeds City Varieties as part of a 16-date tour, and you can see Graham there.
March the 16th.
March the 16th. There we have it.
Leeds.
And a beautiful venue to play, Leeds City Varieties. Of course, you'll have played there before.
We have played there before. Yes.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah. Splendid. Well, thank you so much.
Venue.
Yeah, absolutely.
Indeed. That was very good.
Yeah, I mean, it's suddenly I just thought about that, you know, and he makes a really good point. I think it's fascinating. I would have thought that they're one of the most impossible bands to probably be a cover band of.
Yeah,
which I
can
think
you imagine anybody wanting to do Life as a Minestrone or Art for Art's sake? You'd have to be either some weird art rock band or field music, one of the two.
I mean, I think that's a tribute to the songs, though, actually.
Well, yeah, because they're still pop. They managed to be a bit odd, unusual, and yet entirely pop. And if one sort of thinks back to, because they are art for art's sake. There is you can see why the father might have said that line. There is art there.
but actually they stand up really well as pop songs. Yes, you can see the art that's there in crafting them. But above all, Graham's got such pop sensibilities, as we know, from the age of 16 in songwriting. And that's what shines through for all the cleverness of them. Memorable hooks.
Well, the four guys in 10cc were very different, with a lot of different talents and different ways. Yeah. So it's a sort of 70s version of the Beatles, really, in more ways than one.
I mean, he made that comparison, and you can see why. I mean, I would throw in XTC would be a comparison through the 80s and 90s that would fit that as well. And actually, you make that correlation with field music. I think that's absolutely fair to make that correlation, and that's where interesting. The influence is interesting. It's on very articulate music making, but that still has a pop sensibility about it.
Anyway, I thought Graham Gouldman came across like he was about 60 at the oldest, and so he's kept his youth, that's for sure. Still got a lot of enthusiasm, and absolutely, you wouldn't have guessed what age he was.
No. So Graham, I think we've got a little bit of time just to do a couple more topics this evening, if we may. Let's start with some interesting news, which actually has been touted a little while back, which is about the National Poetry Centre that's going to happen in Leeds. And I'm really pleased that something's going to happen in Leeds rather than Manchester. Just for once, it's going to happen in Leeds rather than Manchester.
Yeah.
So good.
But the good news is they've got to 5 million. The idea isn't a new idea. What's new is the government's guaranteed £5 million. So they can actually convert an old church in Woodhouse Lane in Leeds into Britain's first national poetry centre, which is amazing. Leeds is going to have Britain's national poetry centre. That's a major thing.
It is, and of course we've got the poet laureate Simon Armitage, of course, is a West Yorkshireman, and so I'm sure that Simon, no doubt, will be playing a prominent part in that as well.
But you've also got Tony Harrison, who wrote the famous or infamous poem V 40 years ago. He's from Beeston in Leeds.
Yes, yeah.
And then you've got, if you go further afield in West Yorkshire, you've got Ted Hughes links.
Hughes, of course. Sylvia Plath, of course, technically obviously American, but had her connections through with Yorkshire as well, of course. So I think it's fantastic news. Also, because I think it takes the opportunity to present poetry in a different way, and I think that's always positive as well. I think to take it out of I don't think it's a rarefied thing. I think it's unfair to ever say that, and particularly now that spoken word has become so prominent as well. But if you like, it makes it living and breathing and not just stuck in books. So I think there's a lot to look forward to with this project.
Well, yeah, I mean, I first went on about Leeds in the sense that Leeds should big itself up in terms of its cultural history, especially in literature. Probably when I was doing Charm magazine about 25, 30 years ago. So it's great that Leeds is starting to actually big itself up about its own history, because it usually underplays all its cultural riches. And this is a massive step forward for making Leeds have a bigger and better and different reputation than before.
And it's interesting that it's happening, of course, at a time we've got Bradford City of Culture happening as well, of course. So there's a dual potential focus here with a National Poetry Centre in Leeds as well. So there's another. I'm not trying to be anti-Manchester and Liverpool. I think it's healthy actually that all the great northern cities have fantastic art going on. My point is, I want Yorkshire to punch its weight and above its weight, if you like.
Exactly, that's exactly right, Charles.
That's what I keep passionately wanting, because both Manchester and Liverpool do that. And and that's because there's something about their character which we've talked about before. They've got more natural braggadocio about doing that. But here's something,
big word. I thought it was a form of cabbage or lettuce, braggadocio.
I've probably made a word up there, but I'm sure it sounds vaguely right. Now, as ever, we're running out of time, but I think you've just got time, Graham, for your second little number.
No, I haven't. I think we should do that another week. I've got time for a quick interruption, though.
Oh, please interrupt, which is exactly what you're doing. Interrupt.
Well, you know my theory is that the first prog rock album was actually Procol Harum's debut, which was recorded in 1967 and released in January 1968. Well, I've been listening to Bartley James Harvest from the mid-1970s recently, who I haven't really listened to before. A famous prog rock band. Not as big as Yes, but still successful. And their mid-70s stuff, put it next to Procol Harum from '67, it fits in perfectly. So I stick to my guns on that. But the interesting about Back to James Harvest is because prog rock was quite posh in a lot of ways. One of the main members of the band, his name was Willie Wolstenholme.
Indeed. It was indeed.
Which sounds like a posh boy's name.
It should be in a PG Woodhouse novel.
Exactly, yeah. But the funny thing is, if you scrape the surface of Back to James Harvest, they're actually from the north. They met up at Oldham College of Art.
Did they?
So they're probably not as posh as that name suggests.
No. Excellent. Well, that's okay. That's fine. About Barclay James Harvest, a band I don't think I've ever listened to even one song by. So, what made you suddenly want to discover them?
Well, I always remember the track called "Poor Man's Moody Blues," which they wrote in the '70s because people were comparing them to the Moody Blues. And I thought any band that's willing to write a song taking the mickey out of their own reputation, which is not particularly flattering to be called a poor man's Moody Blues, is a band that's worth listening to. So I finally, having put it off for years, a bit like Coldplay, I've never bought a Coldplay album. I just can't bring myself to do it. No. Well, with Barclay James Harvest, I finally brought myself to do it. And so far, it's quite a pleasant experience.
Do you think a Yes tribute act would be called No?
Well, no, because no one would go then. Maybe.
It'd be most pointless, a negative thing to do, wouldn't
it? Yeah. But yeah, call a Yes tribute band, maybe. Yeah.
So, Graham, just briefly, BAFTAs last night, we might talk about this in more depth in the future. I just think they got decisions absolutely... I thought Conclave, would you want to argue a case against that winning?
A little bit. Best film? Yeah. I would have given it to Ralph Fiennes. He was superb.
So he was, but so was Adrian Brody's performance in The Brutalist. I think we're spoilt this year. I have not seen the winner of the Best Actress. I've not seen Honora. Have you seen that film? I know nothing about Honora.
I do want to watch it, but I did think that award was slightly unusual. She was up against really stiff competition and actresses with a great pedigree, and I thought that was a slight misstep, but it certainly got them some publicity. And these days, film awards want publicity as well.
She looked extremely surprised. She said she hadn't prepared any speech or whatever, because she was also nominated, wasn't she, for EE sort of rising star. So, I mean, you can't rise more quickly than actually winning that award at the BAFTAs. So I'm not sure where I've not even been aware of that film coming to any cinema at all around here.
I've saw it, but it's like on such a short release. It's on such awkward times of the day to watch, and it hasn't been given like loads and loads of screenings. So yeah, it's like trying to spot a rare butterfly, try to get to see that film.
Nothing controversial, obviously, about victory for the return of Mr. Park and his wonderful animated films.
Wallace and Gromit.
Yeah, that was the most predictable victory, but
Vengeance Most Foul was absolutely superb.
It was. It's magnificent.
If it'd been a live action film with no animation, it would have been a great comedy.
I mean, it just brings joy to the face, doesn't it?
And it's clever. It's not.
It's clever.
Not stupid entertainment.
Not stupid.
Yeah.
It is. Good word for it. It is clever. Absolutely.
You've been listening to the podcast Two Big Egos in a Small Car. Your hosts were Graham Chalmers and Charles Hutchinson. This was a Baltic sub-production.